Ambassador pressed his six-fingered hand against the control panel of his diplomatic vessel. The massive ship hung in space above the third planet from a yellow star. His crew had been monitoring radio signals from this world for several cycles. The signals were crude and chaotic, just like every other primitive species they had found. The ship was enormous. It stretched over a kilometer long and cast a shadow over the cities below. Had used this same ship to make first contact with 47 different species. The sight of it always had the same effect. The primitives would panic, then send desperate messages begging for mercy or trying to communicate. "Begin standard first contact protocol," ordered his communication officer. The message went out in 47,000 different languages. It was the same message the Galactic Council had used for thousands of years. "Greetings, primitive species. We are the Galactic Council. Your world has been chosen for integration into our great civilization. Prepare your leaders for immediate contact. Resistance will result in correction." Settled back in his command chair, now came the waiting period. Usually it took anywhere from 1 to 6 hours for a response. The primitives needed time to stop panicking and organize their governments. Some species tried to hide, others immediately surrendered. A few attempted to fight, which never ended well for them. But something was wrong. "Sir," the communication officer said after 3 hours, "we're receiving no response." "None at all?" asked. This was unusual but not unheard of. Sometimes primitives were too shocked to respond immediately. "No, sir, but there's something else. The planet's communication networks are still active. They're still broadcasting television, radio, and data transmissions to each other. It's like they're ignoring us completely." Scales rippled with confusion. In his 40 years of diplomatic service, he had never seen this behavior. Every species responded to first contact, even if it was just screaming in terror. But these humans seemed to be going about their normal business. "Show me the surface," he commanded. The main screen displayed images from the planet below. Cities continued their normal functions. Traffic moved through streets. People walked around like nothing had happened. A massive alien ship was hovering over their largest population centers, and they were acting like it was a normal day. "Are you certain they received our transmission?" asked. "Yes, sir. Our sensors confirmed the signal reached every communication device on the planet. They definitely heard us." Stood up and paced around his command deck. This made no sense. Even the most primitive species understood what a massive spaceship meant. They might not have technology, but they understood threats. Yet these humans seemed completely unbothered. "Sir," another officer called out, "we're detecting some unusual activity." "What kind of activity?" "There appears to be a small construction project in their outer system, some kind of space station, very crude looking. Should we investigate?" Waved a dismissive hand. "Ignore it, probably just some primitive satellite. Focus on getting a response from their leaders." 6 more hours passed. Still nothing. The humans continued their daily routines. Their news broadcasts mentioned the alien ship, but only briefly, like it was just another story. Most humans seemed more interested in their sports games and entertainment shows than the arrival of an advanced alien civilization. "This is impossible," muttered. "Send the message again, increase the power." The second transmission was strong enough to override every communication device on the planet. Every television, radio, and computer screen displayed the Council's message simultaneously. It was impossible to ignore. The response came 30 minutes later. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the planet." "Finally, put it on screen." A human face appeared on the display. It was a middle-aged male with short brown hair and tired eyes. He wore a simple blue uniform with no obvious rank markings. Behind him was a plain white room with a single desk. "Hello," the human said calmly. "This is Earth's Department of External Affairs. We received your message." leaned forward eagerly. "Excellent. I am Ambassador of the Confederation, speaking for the Galactic Council. We are prepared to begin standard integration procedures. Please provide us with a list of your world leaders so we may begin negotiations." The human looked thoughtful for a moment. "That won't be necessary." "I'm sorry. We're not interested in joining your organization. Please remove your vessel from our space." His mouth fell open. In 40 years, no species had ever said no to integration. Not once. "I think there may be some misunderstanding. This is not a choice. The Galactic Council has authority over this entire region of space. All intelligent species must comply with Council law." The human shrugged. "We don't recognize that authority." You don't recognize," struggled to find words. "Do you understand what you're saying? The Council has advanced technology beyond your imagination. We have weapons that could destroy your planet in minutes. We offer you the chance to join the greatest civilization in the galaxy, and you're refusing." "That's correct," the human said. "But why?" The human was quiet for several seconds. When he spoke again, his voice was still calm but somehow colder. "Because we've been listening to your communications for quite some time. We know what happens to species that join your council. They lose their independence. Their cultures get absorbed. Their military forces get disbanded. Within a few generations, they become just another minor province in your empire." Felt his blood chill. How long had these humans been monitoring council communications? That should have been impossible with their primitive technology. That's not accurate," said. "Member species maintain their autonomy within council structure." The human smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. "Tell that to the—" "Oh wait, you can't. They got integrated so thoroughly that their language doesn't exist anymore." Now was truly alarmed. The integration had happened over 200 years ago. How could these primitives know about that? "I think there's been enough talking," the human continued. "You have 72 hours to remove your ships from our space. After that, we'll remove them for you." "You'll what?" Couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Are you threatening us?" "Just stating a fact. 72 hours." The transmission ended. Stared at the blank screen in complete shock. His crew looked equally stunned. Never in the history of the Galactic Council had a primitive species threatened them during first contact. It was unthinkable. But as the hours passed and reports came in from other council ships in the system, one thing became clear. The humans weren't backing down. They weren't panicking. They weren't even preparing for war. They were just waiting. And somehow, that was the most terrifying response of all. 3 days passed, and the humans still had not responded to the Council's ultimatum. Ambassador paced nervously around his command center. His superiors were asking for daily reports, and he had nothing good to tell them. No species had ever behaved like this. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we've completed our scan of the human space station. It's even more primitive than we thought. Basic metal construction, simple fusion reactors, maybe 50 crew members. Nothing threatening." Nodded, but something bothered him about that station. The humans had mentioned it specifically in their transmission. Why would they draw attention to such a weak target? "Incoming transmission from Council headquarters," his communication officer announced. The main screen activated to show High Counselor, a massive reptilian creature with golden scales and cold yellow eyes. Behind him stood representatives from 12 different council species. This was serious. "Ambassador's voice rumbled through the ship. Your reports are troubling. Are you telling us that a primitive species is refusing integration?" "Yes, High Counselor. They seem determined to maintain their independence." Several of the representatives behind began talking at once. Caught fragments of their conversations. Words like impossible and unprecedented and dangerous precedent. Raised a massive clawed hand for silence. "This cannot be allowed. If word spreads that species can simply refuse integration, it could destabilize our entire expansion program. You will issue a final ultimatum." "What are the terms?" asked. "Standard enforcement protocol. They have 30 rotations to cease all nuclear weapons testing, disband their military forces, and submit to Council authority. If they refuse, we implement corrective intervention." Had seen corrective intervention before. It meant orbital bombardment of military targets, followed by ground invasion if necessary. Most species surrendered long before it reached that point. "And if they still refuse?" His eyes glowed brighter. "Then we make an example of them, destroy something they value, show them our power." The transmission ended. Immediately began preparing the ultimatum. But as he worked, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The humans had been too calm, too confident. They were acting like they knew something the Council didn't. The ultimatum was broadcast to Earth 6 hours later. This time, made sure the message couldn't be ignored. Every communication device on the planet displayed the Council's demands. The message was simple and direct. "Primitive humans, your defiance ends now. You have 30 rotations to comply with the following demands. First, cease all nuclear weapons testing immediately. Second, disband all military forces and surrender all weapons to Council authority. Third, submit your planetary government to Council oversight. Failure to comply will result in corrective measures." To demonstrate the Council's power, ordered his weapons officer to target one of Earth's outer moons. The ship's main cannon charged up with a low humming sound. A beam of pure energy lanced out across space and struck the small, uninhabited moon. The celestial body simply disappeared, turned into glowing particles that scattered into space. "That should get their attention," the weapons officer said with satisfaction. But the response from Earth was not what anyone expected. It came 3 days later, just as the 30 rotation deadline was approaching. The same human male appeared on the screen, sitting at the same simple desk. But this time he wasn't alone. Behind him stood several other humans in similar uniforms. "This is Earth's Department of External Affairs," the man began. "We received your ultimatum." "And your response?" demanded. The human looked directly into the camera. "Our response is no. No. We will not cease nuclear weapons testing. We will not disband our military. We will not submit to your authority. Your demonstration of power was noted, but it doesn't change anything." Felt his anger rising. "Do you understand what will happen if you refuse? We have a fleet of warships. We can destroy your entire civilization." The human nodded calmly. "You could try." "We could try," couldn't believe the arrogance. "We have technology thousands of years ahead of yours. Our shields can stop any weapon you possess. Our weapons can crack planets." "That's nice," the human replied. "But you're still not welcome in our space. You have 64 hours to leave." 64 hours. Your original deadline was 72 hours 3 days ago. The human smiled. "Time's passing." One of the other humans stepped forward. It was a female with short gray hair and sharp eyes. "Before you go, we have something to show you." The screen split to show a view of space near Earth. Recognized the location immediately. It was where the human space station was located. "That's our research facility," the woman explained. "We call it Station. We thought you might be interested in what we've been working on." As they watched, the small space station began to change. Metal panels folded back to reveal hidden sections. The station unfolded like a mechanical flower, growing larger and more complex by the second. Weapon ports opened along its hull. Shield generators came online with a blue glow. In less than 5 minutes, the primitive station had transformed into something that looked like it belonged in a council fleet. Hal whispered. The human woman heard him. "We've been busy. That station has been under construction for about 15 years. We wanted to make sure we could properly welcome visitors. That technology, those weapons, they're impossible for your level of development. Are they? The woman's smile grew wider. You've been assuming we're primitive because we use radio communications and chemical rockets, but there are advantages to keeping a low profile. It means people underestimate you. The male human stepped forward again. We're going to give you one more chance to leave peacefully, not because we're afraid of war, but because we'd prefer to avoid unnecessary destruction. But if you insist on staying, we'll show you just how primitive we really are. The transmission ended, leaving and his crew staring at the transformed space station. The tactical officer ran scan after scan, but the readings made no sense. The station was generating energy levels that should have been impossible. Its weapon signatures were unlike anything in the Council database. "Sir," the communication officer said nervously, "we're receiving priority transmissions from 12 other Council ships in the system. They're all reporting the same thing." "What?" "Similar stations are appearing throughout the system. They were hidden in asteroid fields, behind moons, even in the planet's orbital debris. Sir, there are dozens of them." Felt cold fear creeping up his spine. The humans hadn't built one hidden station. They had built an entire hidden fleet, and somehow, impossibly, their technology rivaled the Council's own. For the first time in 40 years of diplomatic service, Ambassador was face to face with a species that might actually be able to back up their threats. The countdown clock on his console showed 63 hours and 47 minutes remaining. And the humans were still waiting. High Counselor did not take the news well. His roar of rage echoed through the council chambers, causing several smaller species representatives to step back in fear. The emergency session had been called after Ambassador's report about the human space stations. "Impossible," bellowed. "Primitives cannot develop such technology in secret. There must be another explanation." Counselor Mesh, a tall creature with multiple eyes, clicked his mandibles nervously. Perhaps they had help from a rogue council member, or maybe they discovered ancient technology. "It doesn't matter how they got it," said Counselor, whose species looked like floating jellyfish. "What matters is that they're using it to threaten us. This cannot be allowed." Paced around the circular chamber, his heavy footsteps shaking the floor. "Send an enforcement fleet. 3 heavy cruisers should be sufficient. They will destroy one of these stations as a demonstration. Once the humans see their technology is inferior, they will surrender." "What if their technology isn't inferior?" asked Counselor Mesh quietly. The chamber fell silent. In 12,000 years of expansion, the Galactic Council had never encountered a species with technology equal to their own. It was unthinkable. "Then we will find out just how primitive these humans really are," said. Back at Earth, Ambassador received his orders with growing unease. He was to send 3 of his heavy cruisers to destroy the human station called. It should be an easy mission. Council heavy cruisers were massive ships, each one capable of destroying entire fleets of primitive vessels. "Captain, you will lead this mission," told his most experienced ship commander. "Target the station that revealed itself. Make sure the humans can see their technology fail." Captain was a veteran of dozens of compliance missions. His ship, the Vindication, had never failed to complete an objective. "Understood, Ambassador. How much force should we use?" "Minimal. We want to disable the station, not destroy it completely. The goal is demonstration, not annihilation." 3 hours later, the enforcement fleet approached station. The human outpost hung in space, no longer pretending to be a simple research facility. Its true form was impressive but still much smaller than the council ships approaching it. "No response to our hails," reported the communication officer aboard the Vindication. "Good," Captain replied. "Primitives often freeze when faced with real military power. Target their main reactor. Low power setting." But as the Council ships closed to firing range, something unexpected happened. Station began to move. Not the slow, clumsy movement they expected from a station with basic thrusters, but smooth, precise maneuvers that seemed to ignore physics. "Sir," the tactical officer said with confusion, "their acceleration is impossible. Our sensors show no engine signatures that could produce that kind of movement." "Focus on the mission," ordered. "Fire when ready." The Vindication's main cannon discharged, sending a blue energy beam toward the station. It should have easily penetrated the human shields and disabled their reactor. Instead, the beam simply disappeared when it hit the station's defensive field. "What happened?" demanded. "Unknown, sir. The energy beam was completely absorbed. No damage to the target." Before could respond, alarms began screaming throughout his ship. "Multiple weapon locks," the tactical officer shouted. "The station is targeting all 3 ships simultaneously." "Impossible. Our sensors show they only have 6 weapon ports." "Sir, new contacts appearing. Multiple human vessels throughout the area." The main screen showed a sight that chilled Captain to his core. Dozens of human ships were appearing around them, materializing from what seemed like empty space. Each one was different in design but clearly advanced. Some were sleek and fast, others heavily armored. All of them had weapons pointed at the Council fleet. "This is Commander Sarah of Defense Command," came a voice over their communication system. The speaker was a human female, calm and professional. "You are surrounded and power down your weapons and prepare to surrender." Captain was a proud warrior who had never retreated from battle. Council ships do not surrender to primitives. All ships open fire. The 3 Council cruisers unleashed their full firepower at once. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes filled the space around station. It should have been enough to destroy everything in the area. Instead, the human vessels moved like nothing had ever seen. They dodged between energy beams with impossible grace, their shields absorbing hits that should have vaporized them. Some ships seemed to simply step sideways through space, appearing in completely different locations between 1 second and the next. And then the humans fired back. The first human weapon hit the Vindication's forward shields and passed right through them like they weren't there. The beam struck the ship's armor, which had been designed to resist any known weapon, and cut through it like soft metal. Warning lights flashed as entire sections of the ship lost power. "Shields down to 60%, the tactical officer reported in disbelief. "How, that's impossible." "Sir, their weapons are using some kind of phase technology. They're attacking us on multiple dimensional frequencies simultaneously." The second Council ship, the Retribution, tried to retreat, but found its path blocked by a small human vessel that couldn't have been more than 100 meters long. The tiny ship fired once, and the massive Council cruiser simply stopped moving. "They've disabled our engines," came the panicked voice of the Retribution's captain over the communication channel. "Main power is failing." Captain watched in horror as human ships surrounded his fleet like predators circling wounded prey. None of his weapons seemed to affect them significantly, while every human shot found its mark despite their defensive systems. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "we've lost 40% of our firepower. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. At this rate, we'll be completely disabled in 6 minutes." Had been in hundreds of battles, but this wasn't a battle. This was a demonstration. The humans were showing him exactly how outclassed the Council fleet really was. "This is command," Sarah's voice came through the speakers again. "You have 2 options. Surrender now or we'll continue disabling your ships piece by piece. Choose quickly." For the first time in his military career, Captain faced an enemy he couldn't defeat. The humans had technology that made Council ships look like toys. They moved like they could read his thoughts before he had them. Their weapons ignored every defense he possessed. "All ships," he said into his communication system, his voice heavy with defeat, "stand down. Power down all weapons." 17 minutes after the engagement began, 3 Council heavy cruisers surrendered to a handful of human vessels. The entire battle had been recorded by sensors throughout the system. Within hours, the recording would reach Council headquarters, where it would cause panic among species who had considered themselves the masters of the galaxy for thousands of years. The humans hadn't just won a battle, they had shattered the Council's sense of invincibility forever. The emergency session of the Galactic Council lasted for 3 days. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the Great Chamber, all talking at once. The recording of the human victory played over and over on massive screens, while shocked counselors tried to understand what they had witnessed. High Counselor stood at the center of it all, his golden scales now dull with exhaustion. In 3 days he had aged years. The impossible had happened, and he didn't know how to fix it. "Order," he roared, and the chamber gradually fell quiet. "We cannot allow panic to control our decisions. Yes, these humans have advanced technology. Yes, they defeated our enforcement fleet. But they are still just one species on one planet." Counselor Mesh raised a thin arm. "One species that has technology we don't understand. Our best scientists have analyzed the battle recordings. The human weapons operate on principles that shouldn't be possible. And their ships move like they're not bound by normal physics," added Counselor. "Our fleet commanders are calling it impossible." Slammed his massive fist on the podium. "Nothing is impossible. They must have found ancient technology or received help from unknown sources. But they are still primitives at heart. We just need to approach this differently." "What do you suggest?" asked Counselor, whose crystalline body sparkled nervously. "Diplomacy, real diplomacy. We send our best negotiators to Earth. We offer them everything they could possibly want. Territory, technology, positions of power in the Council. Everyone has a price." Murmurs filled the chamber as representatives considered this approach. It was true that no species had ever refused everything the Council could offer. "Who would lead such a mission?" Counselor Mesh asked. "Prime Conciliator announced. "She has never failed to reach an agreement. If anyone can find a way to bring these humans into the Council peacefully, it's her." Prime Conciliator was a legend among Council diplomats. In 200 years of service, she had successfully negotiated the peaceful integration of over 300 species. Her appearance was designed to be non-threatening, a small, graceful being with soft features and a warm voice. But her mind was sharp enough to find the perfect offer for any species. 3 days later, An's diplomatic vessel approached Earth. Unlike the massive warships that had come before, this ship was elegant and peaceful-looking. It broadcast messages of friendship in every human language. "This is Prime Conciliator and of the Galactic Council," her transmission began. "I come in peace, seeking only dialogue and mutual understanding. I request permission to meet with your representatives." The response came quickly. "This is Earth's Department of External Affairs. You may send one shuttle to the coordinates we're transmitting. No weapons, no escorts, no recording devices." And smiled. The humans were already negotiating. That was a good sign. The meeting took place aboard station, in a simple conference room that looked like it had been built for humans rather than aliens, and sat across a plain metal table from a single human representative. The human introduced herself as Sarah, the same woman who had commanded the defense fleet during the recent battle. She was middle-aged, with short black hair and intelligent eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform with no obvious rank markings. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," and began, using her warmest diplomatic tone. "I hope we can find a peaceful solution to this misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding," Sarah replied calmly. "You want us to join your empire. We don't want to join. It's pretty simple." And had expected this opening position. Every species started by claiming they wanted independence. I understand your concerns, but I think you may not fully understand what we're offering. The Galactic Council isn't an empire. It's a confederation of free species working together for mutual benefit. Is it? Sarah asked. What happens to species that choose not to join? The question was direct and uncomfortable. Well, eventually they usually see the benefits of membership and choose to join voluntarily. And if they don't? And hesitated. In rare cases, species that refuse integration can become problematic. For their own protection, the Council sometimes has to take protective measures. Sarah nodded. By protective measures, you mean conquest. That's a very harsh way to put it. Sarah reached into her jacket and pulled out a small device. She activated it, and a holographic display appeared above the table. These are records from your own databases, species integration records for the past 1,000 years. And stared at the display in shock. It showed detailed council records that should have been classified beyond any access level. How did you get these? We've been monitoring your communications for decades. We know about the incident, the corrections, the pacification, 37 species in the past 1,000 years that refused integration, all of them eventually conquered and absorbed. The hologram shifted to show population records. They had 8 billion people. After integration, their population dropped to 2 billion over 50 years. Their language was declared obsolete. Their culture was restructured for efficiency. Their military leaders were executed for resistance. And felt her diplomatic composure slipping. Those were extreme cases, species that actively fought against peace. They fought against conquest, Sarah corrected, just like we're prepared to do. The hologram changed again, showing military deployment records. You currently have 200 warships heading toward our system. More fleets are being assembled. You're preparing for the largest military operation in Council history. Those are just precautionary measures, and said weakly. Sarah deactivated the display and looked directly at her. Let me save us both some time. I know what you're going to offer. Advanced technology, territorial rights, seats on the Council, protection from hostile species. The same package you've offered everyone else. Those are generous offers. They're the bait in a trap. You offer independence while building dependence. You provide technology that requires your support systems. You give political positions that require Council oversight. Within a few generations, the integrated species can't survive without you. And was quiet for a long moment. This human understood the integration process better than most Council members. What is it you want? There must be something. Sarah stood up. We want you to leave. We want to be left alone to develop as we choose. We want to explore space at our own pace and make our own mistakes. We don't want to be part of your empire, no matter how you dress it up. But why? We offer peace, prosperity, advancement beyond anything you could achieve alone. At the cost of everything that makes us human. You're not offering to improve our civilization. You're offering to replace it with yours. And felt desperation creeping into her voice. We've never had a species completely refuse integration. There must be some middle ground. Sarah walked to the window and looked out at the stars. We've studied your history. In 12,000 years, the Council has grown from 12 species to over 800. Every single expansion was presented as peaceful integration. Every single species that resisted was eventually conquered for their own good. She turned back to face Anne. We've seen this movie before. We know how it ends. Earth doesn't negotiate with empires. We're not an empire, and protested. You're a political entity that demands universal submission and uses military force against those who refuse. What would you call that? And had no answer. For 200 years, she had believed she was serving a force for peace and prosperity in the galaxy. But hearing it described so starkly by this human, she couldn't deny what the Council really was. "This meeting is over," Sarah said. "You have 6 hours to leave our system. After that, we'll consider any council presence an act of war." As Anne's shuttle returned to her ship, she realized something that terrified her more than the human weapons or their impossible technology. For the first time in her career, she had met a species that truly understood what they were refusing. And they were still saying no. The humans weren't naive primitives who could be dazzled by advanced technology. They were fully aware of what the Council offered and what it cost. They had made their choice with complete knowledge of the consequences. That made them the most dangerous enemy the Council had ever faced. The Council chambers had never seen panic like this. Representatives from 800 species filled the Great Hall, their voices creating a chaos of fear and anger. For the first time in 12,000 years, the Galactic Council faced a crisis it couldn't solve with diplomacy or force. High Counselor stood at the central podium, trying to restore order. His golden scales had lost their shine, and his yellow eyes showed exhaustion. "The humans have rejected every offer," he announced. "Prime Conciliator and reports that they refuse all terms of integration." "Then we destroy them," shouted Counselor from the military section. "Assemble the full battle fleet. Show them what happens to species that defy the Council." "With what?" Counselor Mesh clicked his mandibles nervously. "They defeated our enforcement fleet easily. Our weapons can't penetrate their defenses. Our ships can't match their speed." "We have 800 species," roared. "Thousands of ships. Even with advanced technology, they're just one planet." Counselor's jellyfish-like form pulsed with agitation. "One planet that somehow knows our classified records. One planet that's been monitoring our communications for decades. How is that possible?" The question hung in the air unanswered. It should have been impossible for a primitive species to break Council security codes. Yet the humans had accessed files that even most Council members couldn't see. "I've ordered our intelligence division to investigate," said. "They should have answers soon." As if summoned by his words, Chief Intelligence Coordinator entered the chamber. The tall, spider-like creature moved quickly to the central platform, carrying several data crystals. "High Counselor," began, "we've completed our analysis of human communication intercepts and historical records. The situation is far worse than we thought." A holographic display activated above the chamber, showing star charts and timeline data. The humans weren't lying when they said they'd been monitoring us for decades. "We've found evidence of surveillance equipment throughout Council space, some of it installed over 50 years ago." Murmurs of disbelief filled the chamber. "That's impossible," Counselor said. "Humans didn't even have space travel 50 years ago." "That's what we thought," replied. "But our investigation revealed something else. The humans have been in contact with other species for much longer than we realized." The display changed to show a list of extinct civilizations. Names that hadn't been spoken in centuries appeared in glowing text. The dozens of others. "These species didn't simply disappear after integration," continued. "Some of them escaped. Small groups, hidden colonies, survivors who refused to accept conquest, and they found Earth." The chamber fell silent. Evan's breathing seemed loud in the sudden quiet. The first contact was made by survivors nearly 200 years ago. They found Earth when humans were still using steam engines and basic electricity. Over the centuries, more survivor groups arrived. Each one brought knowledge, technology, and a hatred for the Council. The holographic display showed a timeline of technological development on Earth. The progression was impossible to ignore. Human advancement had accelerated dramatically at exactly the times when Council databases showed integration incidents with resistant species. "The humans didn't develop their technology alone," said. "They're the inheritors of dozens of extinct civilizations. Every species we conquered that managed to save even a few survivors contributed to Earth's preparation." Counselor Mesh spoke in a whisper. "They've been preparing for war with us for 2 centuries. Not just preparing, corrected, planning. The human resistance isn't random defiance. It's the culmination of a coordinated effort by every species we've ever destroyed." The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. Hundreds of representatives began talking at once, their voices rising in fear and anger. Some demanded immediate military action. Others called for retreat. A few suggested negotiation. Raised his hands for silence. "How many humans are we really facing?" "Unknown," replied. "Our estimates suggest Earth's population includes survivors from at least 37 extinct species. Some have been integrated into human society for generations. Others maintain separate communities, but they're all working together." "What about their technology?" "It's a combination of advances from dozens of different civilizations, refined and improved over 2 centuries. They have weapons we don't understand, shields that can absorb our energy, ships that move through dimensions we can't access. In many ways, their technology is beyond ours." Before anyone could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the council chambers. Emergency lights flashed as security officers rushed to their stations. "What's happening?" demanded. "Sir," came a voice over the communication system, "we're receiving reports from fleet commanders throughout council space. Unknown ships are appearing in multiple systems simultaneously." The main display switched to show real-time battle reports. Red warning indicators appeared across dozens of star systems, each one marking the location of human ships attacking council installations. "This is impossible," said. "Earth is 300 light-years from the nearest council military base. How did they get ships there so quickly?" Multiple eyes focused on the display with growing horror. They didn't just prepare for defense, they prepared for offense. Those survivor populations we thought were extinct must have been building fleets in hidden locations throughout the galaxy. The reports kept coming. Human ships were hitting supply stations, communication relays, military outposts, and even some planetary installations. Each attack was precise and devastating, targeting critical infrastructure while avoiding civilian casualties. "They're not trying to conquer us," Mesh realized. "They're trying to cripple our ability to maintain control over our territory." "Fleet Command reports all major communication networks are under attack," came another voice over the intercom. "We're losing contact with outer colonies." Stared at the display in shock. In less than an hour, the humans had launched simultaneous attacks across half the galaxy. It was the largest coordinated military operation in galactic history, and it was being carried out by species the Council thought were extinct. "Sir," said quietly, "there's something else. We've intercepted a message broadcast on all frequencies. It's addressed to every species in Council territory." "What does it say?" The message appeared on the display in hundreds of languages, but the meaning was clear in everyone. "To all species under Council rule, Earth offers an alternative. Your independence is possible. Your cultures can be preserved. Your freedom can be restored. We are the inheritors of all who came before, and we remember what was lost. Join us and reclaim what is yours." The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives screamed at each other in dozens of languages. Some demanded immediate military response. Others called for evacuation. A few quietly activated personal communication devices, probably to contact their home worlds. Realized with growing horror that the humans had done more than reject Council authority. They had offered an alternative to every species in the galaxy. After thousands of years of Council rule, someone was finally saying that resistance was possible. And they had the technology to prove it. "High Counselor," a military aide approached the podium. "Fleet Command is requesting immediate orders. Do we engage the human forces?" looked around the chamber at 800 species who had lived under council rule for thousands of years. Some were loyal allies who genuinely believed in the council's mission. Others were conquered peoples who had never fully accepted integration. All of them had just heard that resistance was possible. For the first time in 12,000 years, the Galactic Council faced an enemy that couldn't be negotiated with, couldn't be intimidated, and couldn't be easily defeated. Worse, it was an enemy that offered hope to every species that had ever dreamed of freedom. The humans weren't just defending their independence, they were starting a revolution. And after centuries of careful preparation by the survivors of dozens of extinct civilizations, they were ready for whatever came next.